Masechet Avoda Zara Daf Mem He Nu Mishnah Hagoyim Ha'ovdim Et Harim Ve'et HaGebaot Hen Mutarin Umasha Lehen Asurim Shene'emar Lo Tachmod Kesef V'Zahab Alehem. If idolaters worship a mountain or a hill, then the mountain and the hill themselves are permitted. Just because some idolater went and bowed down or sacrificed something to a mountain doesn't make the mountain itself prohibited. A Jew can still go and quarry from the mountain or plant things on the mountain, go hiking on the mountain, get all kinds of benefit from the mountain. It's a natural part of the earth and therefore is not going to become prohibited. However, that which is upon the mountain, if he builds some kind of a monument, an idol, or covers the mountain or part of the mountain with gold or silver, does some kind of decoration on the mountain, then that part of it will become prohibited. As it says in the Pasuk Devarim 7, let's look at the Pasuk inside to see the full context. Pesile Elohem tisrefun ba'esh, lo tachmod kesef v'zahab alehem v'lakachta lach. So first, the images of their idols you should put in the fire, and do not covet any silver or gold that's on them and take for yourself. You might think, well, I'll just take the silver and gold and I'll use it for something else, because you lest you be ensnared by it. You'll end up saying, oh, this silver thing, this gold thing is quite nice. Maybe I will worship it, because that is something that's an abomination to Hashem. Do not even bring it to your house. It should be cherem, it should be proscribed, and it should be disgusting to you, abominable, because it is proscribed. So this is very strong words, and so let's see how we learn from here. So since it says, Lo tachmod kesef zav alehem, do not covet the silver and gold that's upon it. Upon what? Meaning upon the mountains. So the mountains themselves, since they're just a natural part of the earth, remain permitted, even though an idolater worshipped it. But the things that are on the mountains, even if it's gold or silver, and something that you might really want to take with you, that is prohibited. That's Tanakama. Rabbi Yosef HaGalili Omer, Elohem al heharim, ve'lo heharim Elohehem. Elohehem al hagebaot, ve'lo hagebaot Elohehem. Rabbi Yosef HaGalili seems to agree with the same halacha that we just said, by Tanakama, more or less, by explaining that the mountains themselves are permitted, but not the things that are on them. However, instead of learning it from Devarim 7, he learns it from Devarim 12. Let's look at those Pesukim also. Here it says, Abed, Abedun et kol mekomot. By the way, the intro says, in the land that Hashem will give you. We'll talk about that in a minute, that these are mitzvot that are obligations when one comes into the land of Israel, when Bnei Israel come and conquer it. It says, Abed tabedun kol mekomot asher abedu sham hagoyim asher atem yorishim otam et Elohem. You must destroy all the sites at which the nations that you are to dispossess worshipped their gods. Al harim adamim v'al gebaot v'tachat kol aisra anan. So you see here, this pasuk, Rabbi Yosef HaGalili would argue, is more relevant because it explicitly talks about the mountains and the hills, and also under every tree, esranan, luxuriant tree or leafy tree. And then it goes on, v'nitastem et mizbechotam, v'shibartem et masebotam, v'asherehem tisrefun ba'esh, ufsileh Elohem tigadeun, v'ibadetem et shemam, v'namakom ahu. All these phrases are going to be relevant in the ensuing discussion in the Gemara, so let's explain them. You should tear down their altars and smash their pillars, and their sacred trees burn. In other words, each thing you destroy in the way appropriate to it. It's hard to burn stones, so the stones you have to smash, the tree you have to burn, and the images of their gods you should cut down and erase their name from that place. Okay, so let's see how he uses this pasuk. It says al harim ve'al hagebaot, and we go back here, and the Rabbi Yosef HaGalili explains. What do you have to destroy? What's prohibited? The gods that are upon their mountains. Elohem al harim. But not the mountains that they treat as gods themselves. Even though they said, oh, mountain, yeah, this is, you're my God. And they starts bowing down and worshiping the mountain does not become prohibited. Only the gods that are on the mountains, and same thing with the hills, the pasuk says the gods that are on the hills, but not the hills that they treat as gods. Okay, so Rabbi Yossi seems to be agreeing with the law, just deriving it from a different verse. Now, how come the tree is prohibited? He seems to be asking from the continuation. Tahat kol esra anan. So you might ask, maybe only that which is under the tree is prohibited. If they set up some kind of idol under the shade of the tree, because that would follow. Only things that are on the mountain are prohibited, but not the mountain themselves. So too you might say, only something under the tree is prohibited, but the tree itself is connected to the earth. It's a naturally growing thing. So you might think that the tree itself should be permitted. So he's asking, why is the tree prohibited? Because it has human involvement. You need a human to come and plant the tree. There are trees that grow on their own and trees that you plant purposefully. The Gemara will discuss both of those categories. But generally, trees are something that can have human involvement. Others interpret this that if you said you can hold on to it, but that doesn't seem to be the main thing, part of the tree, that you can hug a tree, you can't hug a mountain. But we'll see in the discussion, it seems to be that it has human involvement. So anything that has human involvement, and the person now, the human, the idolater, either planted it as an idol or after it grew, decided that he wants it to be an idol. We'll talk about that distinction. So that's prohibited. So that's why a tree is different from a mountain. A mountain never has any human involvement. No humans can go and create a mountain or whatever even if they wanted to. Amar Rabbi Akiva, ani ovin ve'adun lefanecha, kol makom she'ata moseh har gavoa ve'giba nisa'a ve'es ra'anan da sheyesh sham avoda zara. Rabbi Akiva says, I'm going to explain this pasuk differently from what you said. He's probably not disagreeing with the law. Everybody here agrees with the basic distinction that the mountain is permitted, the things that are on it are prohibited. But Rabbi Akiva says, I have a different reading of this pasuk in Devarim 12, and so I will explain and decide the matter for you. Any time that you find a high mountain or a hill or a leafy tree, you should know that there is likely to be idolatry there. In other words, this pasuk, this is probably the pashat of the pasuk, in fact, it says, go destroy all the places that the idolaters worship that you are inheriting. And where might you find it, you ask? Well, here's generally the places where idolaters put idols. They put them on mountains, they put them on hills, and they put them under trees. That's the usual places. And so don't think, well, only if it's in their temple, then I'll destroy it. But the other ones I'm not going to look for. I'm not going to destroy. No, anywhere that they are, and especially the places that you're likely to find them. That's what it's just telling you. Here's all the places and the things that you have to destroy. So it's giving you the locations of them, and that's why it's mentioning all of these things. But in fact, all the idols, yes, you have to destroy, but the mountain itself, you don't have to go and destroy the mountain. Now the Gemara asks, Tanakama and Rabbi Yossi seem to be saying the same thing. One learns it from this pasuk, one learns it from that pasuk, but there should be a substantive difference. If they in fact learning it from different pasukim, they seem to be arguing with each other. So what are they arguing? Two opinions. Amar Rabbi Rami bar Hama Amar Resh Lakish. Sipui har kehar ika benayhu. Tanakama sabar sipur har eno kehar umitzar. So, according to Rami bar Chama, in the name of Resh Lakish, they're arguing about a coating over the mountain. If someone takes a mountain or part of a mountain and coats it with gold or silver, that would be a difference. Tanakama would say that the coating is not part of the mountain itself, and therefore the mountain is permitted, the coating is prohibited. You have to take off that coating and destroy it. Rabbi Yossi says that the coating of a mountain is like the mountain itself. Once you bind something onto the mountain, so now it's a fancy, nice, gold-capped mountain, it becomes part of the mountain itself. And just like the mountain is permitted, so too that coating is also permitted, even though an idolater worshipped it. It doesn't matter, it makes it part of the structure connected to the mountain. Unlike something that is just a monument coming up that's on top of the mountain, that idol or statue, that would, if it's served as an idol, that would be prohibited. So that's the difference between them according to Rami Bar Chama. Rav Sheshata madikula amasipui har enokehar. Rav Sheshata says, no, everybody agrees that a coating is not part of the mountain itself, and if an idolater coated a mountain, the coating would be prohibited. Rather, the argument is about a tree that one planted just to be a regular tree. At first, he just wanted to have a nice tree here, and only later, after it grew, then he started worshiping it. But he didn't initially plant it in order to be worshipped. Tanakama sabar ilan shenetol basof abado mutar. Rabbi Yosef Gali sabar ilan shenetol basof abado asur. The Tanakama would say that a tree that was planted as a regular tree and then worshipped as an idol, that's okay, because you go by the initial planting. Rabbi Yosef Gali, however, says that if you planted the tree initially as a regular tree, but then worshipped it, it becomes prohibited. Mimai. Now, how do we know? What's Rav Sheshat's source that this is a difference between them? Bidikatani sefa. Mipnei ma ashira asura, mipnei sheyesh ba tefisat yedei adam. V'chol sheyesh bo tefisat yedei adam, asur. V'chol sheyesh bo tefisat yedei adam latuye mai, lav latuye, ilan shenataol basof abado. So we can see that Rabbi Yosef Gali must be the one that's stringent on this matter, because his wording in the Mishnah has an extra phrase. It says towards the end of his words, it says, how come a tree is prohibited? We explained the question. If you say that which is on the mountain is prohibited, but not the mountain itself, why not say the same thing? That which is under a leafy tree is prohibited, but maybe the tree itself should be permitted. Oh, because it has involvement of a human being. A human being planted it. And anything, so it could have stopped there. But then it adds another phrase. And anything that has human involvement is prohibited. Why do we have to add that phrase, and anything? What do you mean anything? Kol. It's coming to add another category. Is it not to include this category of something that had human involvement, that you planted initially as a regular tree, and then you started worshiping it afterwards? So this extra phrase is coming and saying anything that has human involvement, even though the human involvement was not for idolatry initially, but then became an object of idolatry afterwards, that also is prohibited. So that's how we know Galili is the one that prohibits, but Tanakama would say no. It's only prohibited if you initially planted it as an idolatrous tree. So we accept that answer. And now we add a different Rabbi Yosef, not Rabbi Yosef Galili, but Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. He also agrees and says that a tree, you planted initially just as a regular tree, and then you worshipped it, is also prohibited. So the two Rabbi Yosefs agree. The Tanya, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, mitoch shene'emar Elohehem al heharim, velo heharim Elohehem, Elohehem al gebaot, velo gebaot Elohehem, shomei ani tachat kol es ra'anan Elohem, velo ra'anan Elohehem. So we have a braita according to Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yehuda. He's quoting the same pasuk that Rabbi Yosef Galili quoted and making a similar derasha, since it says the gods that are on the mountains are prohibited, but the mountains themselves, even though they treat them as gods, those are not prohibited, and the gods that are on the hills that's what the prohibition applies to. You have to destroy them, but you don't have to destroy the hills that they treat as gods. So continue the logic to the next phrase. So should I also learn that only an idol that's under a leafy tree, but that's what I have to destroy. But the leafy tree itself, maybe that they treat as a god, maybe I would think I don't have to destroy it. That's why we need, in the next pasuk, it says, and their trees, the idolatrous trees, burn them down. So this comes to include the tree itself. Ela tachat kol es ra'anan lamali. If so, this is all the braita from Rabbi Yosef, the son of Rabbi Yehuda. So if the pasuk 3 is going to end up teaching us that we have to burn the tree down, so why does the pasuk before say only that which is under the tree, if you're going to burn the tree down also. So the Pasuk 2 is coming to teach us that which Rabbi Akiva teaches in the very Mishnah, where he says, I will explain and decide the matter for you. Any place that you find a mountain or a hill or a leafy tree, you should know that there is likely to be Avoda Zara there. And this comes to teach that you have to get rid of idolatry everywhere, not only in this spot or that spot, no matter where you find it, and this is where you're likely to find it. That's Pasuk 2. And then Pasuk 3 says, and in addition, you have to burn the Asherah tree itself. V'Rabbanan, Haiva Asherem Tisrifun Ba'esh, Mai Abdi Le. Now, the rabbis, Tanakama, they ruled that a tree that's planted as a regular tree and worshipped afterwards, you don't have to destroy. It's like the mountain itself. It's part of the mountain. It was planted to be just a regular tree. It does not become prohibited afterwards. So what are they going to do with this pasuk in 12:3 that says you have to burn their Asherah trees? So we answer, what do you mean, what do they do with it? They need it for the basic law that a tree that was planted in the first place as an Asherah tree, that's the one you have to burn. So that's what they learn from that pasuk. Okay, well, if the rabbis need it for that, well, let's go back, turn the tables. And Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda also, doesn't he need a pasuk in order to teach me that a tree that's planted as an Asherah tree in the first place has to be burnt? So they have to use 12:3 for that. And we answer, indeed, that is so. So now we need a different derivation for Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, that a tree that was planted as a regular tree and then worshipped after is prohibited. I can't use this pasuk because I need that for the plain case of something that was planted in the first place as a Asherah. Nafkale me ve'asherehem tegadeon ezu eshegidu asur ve'ikar mutar have omer ilan shenetao ulbasof abado. We're going to use the pasuk back in chapter 7. We had chapter 7 here. We read towards the end of the chapter, but actually even before that, here it says, Ki im kotasu lehem mizbechotehem titosu umasebotam teshaberu va'asherehem tegadeon ufsi lehem tisrefun ba'esh. Right? This is what you should do. You should destroy their altars and their pillars and their Asherah trees. You should cut down and you should burn their idols in fire. So here it says you should cut them down. Why do we need this pasuk? Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda would say that this pasuk, what is a tree that gidu'o asur v'karo mutar? Where can you have a tree that its trunk is forbidden? When you kadon means to cut it down, you hew it down from the trunk, so it means the trunk is prohibited. But the roots that are in the ground, that you can leave. That's permitted. How could that be? It must be a tree that at first was planted as a kosher regular tree. So the roots that grew, that's fine. But then afterwards, they started worshiping it. So now you have to cut it down. So this pasuk is referring to the case of Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, where it was planted as a regular tree that you have to destroy. So now we wonder, wait, the Baraita itself, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda's the Baraita where he was speaking, doesn't quote this pasuk in Devarim 7:5. It quotes Devarim 12:3. So it's very nice. You can create this nice derasha. It's learning from that pasuk. But that's not the pasuk that Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda himself quoted in the Baraita. So how can you fit your derasha, which sounds nice, but it's not his words? So please explain. And the Gemara explains. Ilu lo ne'emar ka'amar. It's saying if that pasuk were not written, if this pasuk were not written, then I wouldn't have a source to teach me that a tree that was planted as a regular tree and then worshipped is also prohibited. As follows. Ilu lo ne'emar tisrifun ba'esh v'hayiti omer asherehem tegadeon beilan sheneta'o metechila lekach. If we didn't have the pasuk 12:3, then I would have said the pasuk in 7:5 that you have to cut down their tree is talking about a tree that was planted as an Asherah tree to begin with. And I only would have known that law. That's it. Hashta dichtiv Hashem tisfrun ba'esh, ayatar lev Hashem tegadeun, leilan shenetol basof abado. But now that I do have this pasuk in 12:3 that you have to burn down their trees, so then I'll apply that pasuk to a tree that was planted in the first place for Asherah. And now that I have this, I have an extra pasuk that you should cut it down. Oh, that's applying to, that prohibition applies to a tree that I planted in the first place for an Asherah. So therefore, the language of the Baraita is correct. We're learning it from the fact that there is a pasuk in 12:3 Vashem b'du ba'esh that I can use already for a tree that's already planted for Asherah. So since I have that tree, now that leaves this other pasuk, then cut them down extra to teach even a tree that was planted as a regular tree and then worshipped after, it will also be prohibited. V'dabanan, hai v'ashem tegadun mai abdileh. Now the rabbis who say that a tree that was planted as a regular tree is permitted, what will they do with this extra pasuk that you should cut it down? Lechet Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Tamar Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, Gidu Avoda Zara kodmin lechibush Eretz Yisrael. Kibush Eretz Yisrael kodem lebior Avoda Zara. They will use this pasuk to learn the teaching of Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, who says that cutting down of idolatry precedes conquering the land. But conquering the land precedes destroying the Avodah Zarah. In other words, when you first come into the land, first quickly you just cut down the trees and leave them there. You just cut them down to make sure that nobody's going to worship them immediately. And then you have to concentrate on conquering the land, destroying the enemies, and so on. And then after you do that, you have to get rid of the enemies. They're shooting at you. Then you can go back and burn the trees more fully, which was going to take more time. So there's a three-step process here, and so that's why I need the extra pasuk. You have to go through a process. First, you cut them down. Then that's Hashem Tikadeon. Then you destroy the enemies, and then you go back and you burn them. Detane Rav Yosef, v'nitastem et mizbechotam, v'hanach, v'shibartem et mezevotam, v'hanach. And there's a braita taught by Rav Yosef that also supports this three-step process, that you have to v'nesatem, you shall break down their altars. And then you leave them there. And you smash their pillars and then leave them there. You just break it down, but you leave it there for the time being. Then you destroy the enemies, which is you have to do immediately because they're shooting at you. And then afterwards you can go back and totally smash them into little bits or burn them and totally destroy them. V'hanach, tzakadatech, serefa ba'eh. So, to explain this braita, we wonder, what does it mean, v'hanach? You're going to just leave it? Doesn't it need to be burned? The pasuk says, also burn it. Amar Rav Huna, redof v'achar kach serof. So Rav Huna explains, first run after the enemy and then burn it. Burning all the stuff takes time. So you have to have peace and quiet in order to fully burn it. But you don't want to wait all the way till you finish the war. That war could take many months, maybe years. To destroy the enemy. So you quickly cut them down, quickly smash them, go and destroy the enemy, and then you come back and fully burn them and get rid of them so that they can never be reconstituted. All that was for Rabbanan. What would Rabbanan do with the pasuk of cut them down? So that we learned. Now, Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, he used that pasuk to say that you have to cut down even if it was planted to begin with as a regular tree and only then worshipped. But Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yehuda, since he used that pasuk, well, how is he going to learn this three-step process? Minaleh nafkaleh me abed te'abedun. Abed v'achar kach te'abedun. From the double language of abed, destroy, you shall surely destroy. So it means it's first you destroy in a plain cursory way, then go get the enemies, and then come back and ta'abedun and destroy it completely. V'Rabbanan. Now what are the rabbis going to do with this double language? Rabbis need a double language to say that when you are uprooting avodah zarah, you have to go after the roots. It's not enough just to cut it from the surface and up, but go down to the roots. This is both literally and figuratively. If there's a tree, go get the roots, and also figuratively that wherever Avodah Zara is, don't just destroy the big temple, but everything that's supporting it, the support system, whatever is its foundations, everything, all the physical things, the ideas, go and trace out all the roots to destroy it completely. Now, what's the source of Yehuda? That you have to go to the roots and trace the roots and could destroy it completely, since they already used Abed Tabedun for something else. Says you shall destroy their name from that place. So it means that if you destroy their name, no one will even remember it at all. You go and destroy any traces of it so that it won't be remembered at all. So that shows that you have to go after the roots and the traces. But Rabbanan, and what are the rabbis going to do with this pasuk? They already quoted Abed Tabedun to say you have to get all the traces. So what does this teach us about destroying the names? Ha'olechanot l'Hashem detanya. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, minayin le'oked avodah zara shesarich lesharesh achareha tamod omar v'ibadetem et shemam. This means that you should give a nickname. It's good to give nicknames, derogatory nicknames, to an idol to make fun of them. We saw already a few examples in the previous dapim that they take well-known idols that we know that these are their names from Greek sources or ancient Near Eastern sources, and the Torah or the rabbis will often take that name and give a folk etymology that they know is not the real etymology of the name, but they want to make fun of it. So they give them nicknames to make fun of these idols. That's how you know. And what's the source? As it be Eliezer taught in a baraita. How do you know that you should uproot, when you uproot Avodah Zarah, that you should go after the roots themselves, trace it all the way down, as it says, Ibadetem et Shemam. That's the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. However, we're going to focus on the next one. Amar lo Rabbi Akiva, v'alo kivan ne'amar Abed Tabedun. Rabbi Akiva says, we already know that from Abed Tabedun. That's what the rabbi said. We know that from Abed Tabedun. Imken matamod omar v'ibadetem et Shemam min hamakom ahu lechanot Hashem. Therefore, what is the pasuk coming to add when it says that you should destroy their name? That you should make fun of their name and change the name a little, make it a nickname that is going to be derogatory. Now, if you ask, Yachol lishvach, now we said maybe when it says change their name, maybe give it a positive spin on their name that will be laudatory. And we say no, you can make it laudatory. No, obviously we're not going to do that. It's idolatry. Why would we want to praise idolatry? No, maybe you'll say give it a nickname, but a neutral one. Just call it something else, but not for good, not for bad. That's why the pasuk says you should detest it, abhor it. It's prescribed. How do you detest and abhor something? By making fun of it, by giving it a derogatory name. HaKesad, hayu korin ota bet galya, korin ota bet karya. Ayin kol, ayin kos. What's an example? If there was some idolatrous place called Bet Galia, the house of elevation, call it Bet Kalia, the house of digging. Instead of elevating it up, you call it a house that's underground. And if they called some idolatry the all-seeing eye, call it instead Ein Kos, the eye of the thorn. And that way, even when you mention the name, sometimes you have to mention the name. Go destroy that thing, that Ein Kol. So even by saying it, you don't even want to give it praise when you're saying it. So you make fun of it, call it Ein Kos, and then already that changes the way people approach it by making fun of it in their heads. Then they already have a derogatory attitude towards it, and that way, not only will the physical thing be destroyed, but by making fun of the name, one will uproot the very idea of it. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.